Hello everyone and welcome to this week's scripting tutorial. Now this is going to be a tutorial that's been a long time coming, a lot of people have requested it, and that is how to include Envato API registration with your script. Now this method will only apply for scripts for After Effects, and you can also expand it to extensions for Premiere and After Effects, but primarily this is designed for scripts. You cannot make this have a script specifically for Premiere because of what is required, and that is to use call system to basically access the internet, which unfortunately Premiere doesn't have. So this is specifically sort of an After Effects scripting and an extension for Premiere and After Effects tutorial. And with this, you'll be able to actually put in your username and an actual purchase code from Envato, and it has to be an actually used purchase code, and register your application or your script to actually be able to run it. And the beauty of this is that you can basically use all the registration codes and it will cross-check that registration code with the username they provide, and as long as it's valid, it will give you registration successful, thank you for purchasing, and the next time you launch it, it will even remember it. So today is going to be a bit more of an advanced tutorial. I'm not going to go over this code line by line, but I'm going to explain all of the chunks of it so you can make the modifications you need to protect your Envato scripts or products. Before we get started with this video, I do want to remind you down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice a week from the channel. Definitely want to subscribe for more videos coming out like this and to show me that you want them. This code will be in the description for you to use and modify and use for yourself. In the description, make sure you follow us there on GitHub to check out that code and follow us for coding updates, and also in the description, follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not already a member of our Discord server, make sure you come and join to get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, submit tutorial ideas, hang out with members, and much more. And if you'd like to help support us on YouTube, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP, which comes with perks like badges, weekly VIP streams, code in advance, and much more. You can also check us out on AE Scripts and Adobe Exchange in the description to support us as well. So we're going to be using the Envato API. If you're not familiar, VideoHive is a platform underneath Envato which has sections for presets and scripts. This is going to apply for those people who've always wanted to create a script for this website and have it protected by their registration system. Whenever you purchase a product on here, it does give you a registration code regardless of if the developer included one, so we're going to use that to our advantage. And there's pretty detailed API documentation of how to access the different things. We're basically going to be comparing the username the user inputs to the purchase code using our own token to access that information and make sure that it's valid for them to be able to use it. Then we save that information in a file so that if they relaunch the app, it doesn't ask them for the registration again. So to get started, you will need to go to build.envato.com, and you want to create a new personal token. I'm just going to create a dummy token so you can see how to do this, and I'm going to delete this. We can just call this dummy because it's a dummy token, and you can give it all the permissions you want to mess around with. In my case, you can just literally do this and hit create token. This is something you want to keep private. I'm going to delete this so it doesn't matter, but this is going to be for example purposes. You want to keep this private, and this is the key we're going to use to basically connect to the API. And you don't want to give someone this code because then they can access all your personal information or all your sales and things like that. So once you've got it, we'll go ahead and stick it in a notepad document because that's super safe. But we need that personal token in order to check all of our sales, check the registration code, and cross-reference the registration code the user provides with our sales and their username. Now let's look at the actual JSX code. I'm not going to be typing any of this. I've already typed it all out, but I'm going to be explaining it pretty detailedly. So first we have an include, which basically allows us to include information from a separate JSX file. I'm going to have more tutorials coming out on this as well, where I go over how to get variables and functions from other things, and that's basically what we're doing here, is we're including in this source folder, I have a test.jsx file. As you can see, this is encoded. And what I'm going to do is basically remove this. I'm going to say var tk is equal to that token that I just copied. Because in my actual registration script, if I type in tk, when we actually do the call system and we run an operation to verify our purchase, we're going to use that token, which is required. You're supposed to provide your Envato token as an author to be able to connect to this API and check their purchase code. So the reason we're putting it in here is because then we can go, assuming you have the right extension, we have a text to JSX bin by Motionland. You want to have this. We'll go back to our code, highlight the code we want to obfuscate, and click on text to JSX bin. This means that we still have a variable named TK. If I alerted TK, I'm still going to get this value. It's just encoded in this JSX format now. So if someone takes this code, takes your registration code and tries to deconstruct it, they will just see this. They will have to reconstruct this as well, and JSX bin 2.1 is actually really hard to reconstruct. So this is a secondary layer to protect your account's token. So make sure you do that. Again, all you want to do is make sure you have text to bin by Motionland extension installed in VS Code. You go into your, I like to do it in a separate include file so we can include the token separately, and simply right click it, text to JSX bin, and it will provide us with this evaluation of a JSX bin 2.1, which once we say include this JSX file, we can still say alert token, and when I run this, you can see we're actually going to get that token. So that's going to be hidden from the user. We're not going to actually alert that. I'm just showing you for example purposes, and that's how we can protect our code. If you had a different code or a different token or something for the particular API you want to connect to, that is a good way to store it. You basically have a separate JSX file which you include, have a variable for your token, in this case TK, and then encode it so people can't steal it. So now that we have that, we're just going to include JSON, inline JSON here. Then I'm going to create a registration window. Simply has a username input and a registration code input. The help button is simply going to take them, I believe it takes them to their downloads. Yeah. So this just opens their videohive.net/downloads, and it tells them please download for the product you purchased the license and certificate purchase code. So it tells them to get their purchase code so that they can put it in here. It requires their username and it requires their registration code. Those are the two basic pieces of information we want to check for. But there's one more thing I've included with this if you want a third line of defense for your product. In this case, I have product string. The test product I was using for this was CreditSmith, and my friend provided me with the registration code for it. So I also included the product string to compare it to. If the product string here does not match the registration code information they give you, it won't let you in. So there's a third layer there. You can have the username, the registration code, and the product name if you want. Those are all going to be already included in this code for you. And just so you know, I left some comments in here. This product string will be used as a second layer of security, checking, it's actually a third, checking that not only is the registration key correct, but that it matches correctly used script extension. This string will also be used to create a custom file to remember that this is activated, so the user does not have to re-input the registration code every time they launch the product. So in order to make sure they don't have to do that, I made a sort of default folder which can be used for all of these Envato registrations. We have a folder in our documents, a public location, which is very important, called Envato registration. If it doesn't exist, create that folder. Then we're going to create a registration file specific for this product. How is it going to be specific? We're going to use our product string we provided, put it inside the Envato registration folder I just created, and then tack on the suffix reg.json. I already have this one created because I just activated it, and what this is going to contain is sort of all the three steps of information we need to verify: the product name, the key they entered, and the username. That way, basically, once we have created that file, we're first going to check if it exists. If it does, then what we want to do is read all the information, because if we already have our registration file, that means the user's already successfully probably put in their information. So we're going to read that registration file, store the data, and then check the license. If they provided no username, by chance they happen to somehow get past and get no username in, then it is not going to pass. It has to have a username once it reads that file. Then if we know they have a username inputted already and that registration file already exists, we're going to check the license with that registration data, with that product string we already defined, and with the username they already provided. If that doesn't equal null, launch the script. So we can put an alert here that says, you already registered. And if I run that, it's not going to work actually because I just removed the username. See, we have to have all three of those informations there. Once I put the username back in and run it, then if we've checked that their username isn't blank, we're going to basically then go in and check the registration by running this function called Envato license check. This requires their purchase code, the search term, and the username. And by the search term, it really just means the product string. So then what we're going to do is a call system. A long time ago in the past, I always thought that most internet things are basically broken for scripts because it's such an old thing. But it turns out we can use the call system, which if you're not already familiar, runs command prompt or terminal on your system, only available to After Effects. But we can use this to run what's called curl, and there's an operation, and there's actually a bit of code that was found online. We can actually use what's called a curl and provide our token and this link here in our purchase code to get some JSON data back. And if that JSON data is valid, then basically we know they've already registered. So I found that out, and that kind of really opened it up as soon as I found out we can run this curl operation to connect. Now, there's a try statement in here to make sure that you get the right value back. I should go over this code a little bit. So we have a string variable called Envato response. This is what's going to contain all the response information, including a JSON object, which contains like whether or not they truly registered. So we're going to set that equal to our system.call system. We're going to run curl. The header is going to be this authorization, and the bearer token, we're going to provide our token from our test.jsx file. And then we're going to add this verify purchase address followed by a colon and our purchase code .json. So assuming we get a response, let's alert it. So if I run this script now, you can see we get this interesting response. It has all this text here: total received, xferred, average speed, time current, deload, upload, total spent. This is a bunch of data we don't need, but if you look down here, you can see we have what looks to be a JSON object, verify purchase. We have the item name, Credit Smith, the item ID, when it was created, the buyer, and the tool's license and other information like that. Now we can use this to check whether or not it's valid. Because if I provide bad information, let's say the purchase code I provide is wrong. We just change this to something different. You can see now verify purchase has an empty object after it. So if we provide the correct information, this verify purchase object is going to be full of useful data. If we don't, it's going to be empty. And that's kind of the basis of how we tell whether or not they purchased it or not, whether this object is empty or full of stuff. Now, one quick tip is if you're using this a bunch to test, you might start to get a bunch of empty verify purchases. Sometimes when you provide valid information, but you send many requests to this address, your verified purchase will be empty. So if you know your data is your purchase code, all your other data is correct, but your verified purchase is empty, just wait a little bit for it to refresh and you can send more requests. So I'll go ahead and set my key here back to a proper value. And now we know we're getting that response. Next up, we're going to parse that response. We're going to cut out just the object section that we want. To illustrate this, I'm going to then alert Envato response. After we've cut it here, we're going to start the slice at the beginning of the object of this bracket all the way to the end. So as you can see here, now we just get this object. And with this, we're going to now go further down into the code. Once we have gotten this object, we're going to check the verify purchase and the item ID. If the item ID, which is right here, we have 118 blah blah blah, if that's null, that's just a simple property we're going to check. Obviously there's other things you could check to see if are null, and that will tell you it's not a valid response, but in this case we're going to say the item ID is equal to null, return null. Otherwise, let's do another verify check. We're going to check back with this response, which is now an object. We're going to check in verify purchase, the main object, and buyer. In this case, buyer's Madly Studio, and we're going to compare it to username. Username is whatever they put originally inside of here. So if they find that username here, Madly Studio, is equal to the username here, Madly Studio, then we know it's good. They've definitely done something right. In that case, we're going to return true, because when we return true from Envato license check, that means their license is valid, or their file that they already had is valid. And at this point, we've already gone through several checks. We've made sure that their token is right because it will give us a bad response if their token's not right, or their purchase code, that would give us a bad response. We also check that the item ID exists, which checks, hey, is this item in here the same as what we defined? And then finally, we're going to check whether or not the buyer name matches, in this case, Madly Studios, and it does, so return true to license check. So let's go ahead and I reset it. I'm gonna re-register here. I'm just checking here that our objects are still coming in accurately. And registration successful, thank you for purchasing. I want to check because I think I'm getting a null response. I want to check the purchase code. I want to check the search term. I want to check the username. I think I'm getting an invalid response here, which may require a quick fix. That's our purchase code, credit Smith, and undefined. So in this case, we're getting a lot of alerts. Sorry for the noise. In this case, our username is coming in undefined from our already existing file, and it shouldn't be because that actually already exists. So reg data username should give us that. In this case, it's saying username is undefined, but if it's not, it wouldn't be running into that function. Let's just check reg data. Reg data. That might give us an object. No, that gave us the key. Oh, it's because reg data is being read in only as the key. So that's actually a bad thing on my end. This needs to be changed to reg data key and reg data username. Now it's still null. Let's see. Reg data is an object. Key username. Let's go ahead and say JSON dot stringify reg data. And I'm keeping all this in here because it is good to realize that sometimes you will have to port, and it will take some trial and error to get your things to port properly to different APIs and products. So our reg data looks good. Our username exists. Let's check again inside of here what our values are. Alert the purchase code, search term, and the username. Credit Smith. Is the purchase code wrong now? What is the property for that? Key. It's supposed to be. Let's see. It already exists. I think this needs to be key. There we go. Now I think we can say you already registered. Still seem to have an error. Let's see if it's still giving us null. Yes. So let's just maybe we need to use purchase code here. No, that's right. Let's alert. We just alerted those data. Let's again alert the Envato response. I'm wondering if I'm getting if I've sent too many requests and that's the issue I'm having. So yeah, now it's saying you already registered. So I think I was out of requests at that point. You can always check the Envato response, and if it's giving you null for some reason, but you know all your information is right, I've had this happen several times now, wait and it should give you more responses. As long as you're getting this valid information here. Now we've successfully registered. Let's go full circle here. Let's remove our alerts, our unnecessary alerts. We're going to remove our registration file, and let's register and double check everything. So we'll launch this in After Effects, give it our username and our registration code. Again, if we give it for example, a incorrect registration code, it will let us know invalid registration information. We got to try again. Once we give it the correct information, registration successful, thank you. And if they launch the script again, it's like, hey, you already registered, boom, launch their script, and you now have it working appropriately. The last quick thing I wanted to touch on was about this. If you want to further obfuscate this and include this in your final deliverable, for example, if you don't want to have this source file and test JSX to reference to, all you have to do, open up extend script, and you'll want to load up this Envato registration JSX here. So I'll load that up. And since we have this include, as soon as we hit file, export as binary or control shift E, and here I have a destination folder for the final product here, change to JSX, save it. This will now include this test.jsx file, where we don't have to have the source file and the JSX file included with our actual script registration file here. It's now going to be embedded as you export the binary. So that's one cool thing. If you want to have external files, have them included and then export the binary. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. You can pour over the code yourself, but I've gone over pretty much all of it myself. Basically, with this, you can have a nice interface which will allow the user to put in their username and registration code for your Envato product, which you can specify yourself if you want to have this extra layer of precaution. Put in the product name yourself and have a three-way check. Check their username, their registration code, and the product name to make sure all three of those things are valid. Then it will store a file in documents Envato registration, which remembers their information and will let them launch the script next time if required. And this will allow you to add several layers of protection to your script or extension. And just to reiterate, this is specifically for After Effects scripts. It's also for After Effects and Premiere extensions. Unfortunately, Premiere doesn't have access to the call system property required to run the curl operation to connect to the internet. So this is strictly for After Effects scripts and Premiere and After Effects extensions. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly in the channel. And down in the description, you can check out this code again in the GitHub link. Follow us there because I'm uploading lots of cool stuff like this and for other coding updates. And in the description, follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not already a member of the Discord server, make sure you come and join to get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, submit tutorial ideas, and much more. And if you want to help support us on YouTube, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. Link for that is in the description. You can get cool perks like badges, Discord status, VIP streams, and make sure you follow us and check us out on AE Scripts and Adobe Exchange in the description to help follow us and support us there. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.